Welcome to She Sells Radio. I have got such a juicy conversation for you today, which is all about how do you keep going when the evidence isn't there yet? So I love this topic. I will give a quick heads up before we get into it that I'm kind of between office spaces right now. We set up another office outside of my home, and I've actually got my recording equipment over there, and I'm not there today. So recording this on my very minimal equipment. I hope the audio is okay, but here's what I can say is that the topic is going to be so important, so important for you if you are setting any kind of goal that's stretching you. And we've all had those times where we set a next level goal and you're like, okay, is this going to happen? I'm showing up, I'm doing the work. What's going on? It hasn't happened yet. And this has really been inspired by a lot of client conversations I've been having recently. And when I look at our She Sells community and the people in our community, I think one of the common threads is that everyone in this community is going for goals that are big for who they used to be, or for what they saw modeled growing up, or for what they've done before. And, we had this conversation at our 50K club retreat a couple of weeks ago down in Florida. And that group of women is for women who are going for $500,000 and beyond in annual sales or revenue. And the conversation really opening up in that event was that each of them was at a point that had pretty much surpassed what they saw their parents do growing up, and that also surpassed a lot of what they saw their peer circle doing. And it's not about making anything right or wrong, because I think everyone is on this planet with a different mission and agenda. And for some people, it's massive financial expansion. For others, it's something else. And so it's not about one is right or one is wrong, but it is about, I know for the members of our community who are going for those big up levels and you've kind of surpassed everyone around you, you can kind of look around and say, like, what happens from here? And how do I know if this is going to work? And, I'm setting these big goals that are bigger than anything I've ever done before. And how do I have trust and faith that it's going to happen? And one of the things that I've seen in both my own life, and then I also think back to, oh gosh, my corporate sales training days, like back in the day, a lot of the more traditional sales training I would do. And the cause of failure that I think is most common amongst sales professionals, entrepreneurs, even in my own life when I didn't understand how this stuff worked, is that if you don't hit a goal in the time frame that you think you're going to hit it in, that you either give up and say this wasn't meant to be, or you think you've got to create a way smaller goal. And I don't really believe in failure, like as a concept. I believe we're learning and growing. I don't believe we can really fail. But if we were going to say there is a failure, I think that would be it, is giving up and saying, this wasn't meant to be. And it's not true at all. That's not true at all. And most of the clients who I work with, especially my higher level group clients or my private clients, they come into our community and they come and we work together because they want to, in essence, skip levels. They've heard, okay, you've got to do things really incrementally. So let's say that you're in sales, you want to go from zero to a $3,000 month to a $5,000 month to a $10,000 month to a $12,000 or $15,000 month, yada, yada. And look, I'm all for pacing that feels good and feels aligned. I'm not about, you got to put on the gas and go from 0 to 100 to try to prove yourself or to try to validate anything about yourself. But what I find more often is happening with the members of our community, and this was certainly in my own life, is it's almost like you've held yourself back for so long from allowing yourself to be truly abundant, visible, prosperous, impactful in the ways that have been on your heart for a long time, that it's almost like you're a little past due for some stuff, if that makes sense. And so to me, skipping levels is about, we get to make our own rules about how quickly things happen for us. And we don't have to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 unless that's what feels good. a lot of my clients come in and they want to go from $10,000 months to $100,000 months. And they want to do that relatively quickly. And I've done it. I've had clients do it. It is very possible. The biggest thing though is the alignment piece with the goal. And so I want to share that when we're in that space and when we're excited about skipping levels and we've got this big next level goal, but it hasn't happened yet. Maybe you've been working on it for a while, right? You've been stretching, you've been putting yourself out there, you've been doing things that are uncomfortable, you've been investing in yourself, you've been changing habits, you've been working on your self-talk, you've been sending DMs to people who feel, oh, this feels scary, right? And it still hasn't happened yet. How do you keep the faith? And how do you keep going? And so I want to share with you a couple of pointers here today, because the only failure in this whole situation is giving up. That is it. If you keep persisting and you keep showing up for yourself, it will happen, that or something better. And that something better is not a consolation prize. That something better is truly something that's going to light you up even more. And so how do we know that? How do we keep the faith when the evidence hasn't shown up yet? My favorite thing to do is to look to nature for how things work. And I think, gosh, this could solve a lot of problems in our business world today. So the way that, this is maybe a bit of a tangent and a side note as I'm about to say this, I'm like, how related is this really? But I'll just kind of think back to my own, in my sales days, like in corporate sales. I remember if I didn't consistently sell more one day after another, after another, after another, after another, I felt like something was wrong with me. And I felt like I wasn't good enough. Now I gave my power away in that way, but that was how I felt. And if people weren't buying on the time frame that I thought they should, I made myself wrong for it. And there was zero taking into account in that very, I would say, young, kind of immature energy and understanding of how the world works. There was zero taking into account of the fact that things are cyclical and things are seasonal, and that every seed has a gestation period as well. And so how I want you to apply this to, if you've set a goal and it hasn't happened yet, but the goal really lit you up and you felt like you were aligned when you set it, not set it, is how do we look to nature for how things work as guidance? Well, again, every seed has a gestation period. And your idea, your goal, that's a seed. That's a seed of what's possible. It's a seed of what's to come. And by the time you have the download, by the time you have the vision, by the time you have the idea, it's actually about 98% done. So this is when it gets really fun to get into studying quantum physics and energy and creating with the field and energy rather than matter. Is to know that by the time you receive it, it's mostly done. Now we get to take that idea from conception stage and bring it into, make it a physical reality for ourselves, but it's 2% of it, right? So when we look to nature and say every seed has a gestation period, a baby, we know it takes about 9-10 months, 280 days, right? A carrot is 70 to 80 days. You can look this up for any sort of seed of anything there is. The only seed that we don't know how long the gestation period is your goal or your idea. And so that's the only thing, is once you've had that download, once you have that idea, it's like you've planted a seed for what you want. Now, it's your job to water that seed. It's your job to tend that seed, but it's with the same energy that you would if you were actually a gardener, rather than, you wouldn't be frantically clawing at the soil, trying to figure out, is it there yet? Is it there yet? I planted it yesterday. What's wrong? It hasn't happened. You'd be probably pretty chill, trusting that nature's going to take care of most of it for you, right? And you would do your part. You'd water the seed, you'd water the soil, you'd give it maybe some fertilizer, you would prune other plants nearby if they were encroaching on it. And then you would trust that it was going to happen, right? And so, I use this analogy a lot with my female clients of pregnancy with our goals. I had a client recently I was having a conversation with, and her goal is $100,000 a month. And when she set the goal, we talked about like, okay, what was the energy that you had when you were pregnant with your babies? And when we, if you've been pregnant or you know someone who has, which probably most of us do, right? There's not a lot of active effort that's involved on the mother's part until the very end. You take care of yourself, you sleep, you rest, all of that, but it's not a lot of efforting and forcing and pushing until the end. But that we get it, we think we have to do something different with our goals, and we doubt and question whether it's actually going to happen. And so this particular client, she had set this next level financial goal for herself. And this is a skipping levels type of goal, which I love and I'm all about. And she'd been stretching and showing up and investing in herself and doing things that felt very uncomfortable. And it hadn't happened yet, but it was funny, the timing of our call, she had one new client come in the night before, and it was like the first kind of sign that things were starting to get in motion with the goal she'd set. But she came on the call and was, feeling a little anxious about things and feeling like, oh, did I overextend myself? Did I overcommit? I haven't had the 100,000 come in yet, yada, yada. And we had a really simple, easy way of looking at this, which was, look, client name, you set this goal. And when you set this goal, you essentially impregnated yourself with $100,000 month. Now, I know this sounds funny, but this is how I think about it. And it helps my brain like relax a lot about stuff. So you can use this too, if you need to relax about your goal a bit. And it was like, there's nothing wrong. If you're pregnant and you've got a due date, and the baby doesn't come by the due date, do you say, oh, screw it, well, I guess I'm not really pregnant, this thing isn't really meant to be, I'm a failure, blah, 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 let me just throw in the towel? What do? You're like, okay, it's not here yet, but I'm still pregnant, right? It's no different. And then maybe you take even better care of yourself. Maybe you need to get some additional support. Maybe you need to make some adjustments in your lifestyle, your schedule, or whatever, but that's it. That's all you have to do. And then continue to trust and faith that trust and have faith that it's on its way. And so when we come at it from that understanding, and nature has so many examples of just how we can create most powerfully in our lives. And I didn't really even get into this stuff until the past few years, but it's transformational. When we can come at it from that way, we can relax a bit, actually a lot about our goal. And when you're in that relaxed, receptive, grateful energy that is, I already know this is done. Now I'm just kind of waiting for it to happen and I'm doing my part. It gets to be fun. And guess what? It comes a lot easier for you. It's going to come a lot easier for you if you planted a seed, but then you start ripping it up and checking on it and panicking about it. Is it going to be able to grow? No. So it's the exact same. So when we have a goal and we're doing our part and it hasn't happened yet, we don't adjust the goal, adjust the date on it. Don't adjust the goal, adjust the date. And in fact, when I set goals, I have annual revenue goals, I have quarterly goals, I have monthly goals. But I found for myself, it felt stressful to get really attached to something has to happen by such and such date. So the way that I think about it is this is done now. Like this is already done now. And if it happens, I still have a sense of when I think it's going to happen just based on more my feeling. And I don't know, it's even a little difficult to explain, and maybe you can relate. I'm curious if you can send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Elyse Archer. I have a sense like I can tell what's coming when, usually like the timing of the things I'm creating, but I've been off by days or weeks or sometimes years as I think back to stuff. But I don't stress about it anymore because I understand how this stuff works, and that if it doesn't happen by the date I thought it was going to happen by, I just need to adjust the date. But again, coming back to what I was originally saying there, it's like, I live my goals in my head now. So whatever the annual revenue goal is for the company, I have that now. Whatever impact and giving goal is, for the nonprofit work that we do and support. This is happening now for my clients, the results they're getting. This is happening now. And that's actually a little hack you can use for your subconscious too, because if you keep thinking of something as in the future, it'll keep being the future rather than the now. So the more that we can pull our goal into the present, and remember that you always are creating twice, first in your mind and then in your physical reality, and you just live it now internally, you know that it must manifest externally for you. We can't have a death grip on the how and the when of it happening. But I want to invite you to stop being so available to compromise with your goal. And if you set a goal and it hasn't happened yet, and you're feeling like, oh, maybe I should reduce the goal, maybe this just wasn't meant to be, etc. That's the part of you that feels unworthy. And that's the part of you that's willing to compromise with what you want and what you desire. And I want to invite you to stop being so available, to lead with that and to say, no, like I claim what I desire, I claim what I want. And I'm also really open and relaxed about how and when it comes and what that looks like for me, but I'm not going to adjust it unless I feel divinely guided to do so. So that's your first step, is you got to look to nature for how things work, and don't adjust the goal, adjust the date. The key with all of this though, and really I think the second key is alignment. It's alignment. And how do you know, even if it hasn't happened yet, how do you know that it's on its way? How do you know that that sales goal is on its way? How do you know that that revenue goal is on its way? That business, that life goal? Well, you got to check in with how you feel. And when you think about what you desire, what you want, do you feel lit up about it? Do you feel excited about it? Do you feel whole? Do you feel like, yeah, like I actually kind of feel like this is already happening? Or do you feel distance and separation from it? Do you feel nervousness? Do you feel anxiety? Do you feel fear? So as long as you're checking in with the goal and then checking in with how you feel, and your feeling state matters tremendously. If you haven't read the book, Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard, you can read that for a resource on why it matters so much. But as long as you feel good about the goal, you're on the right track, even when it hasn't happened yet. And there is always this period of creation where we have the vision and the desire for what we're creating, and it hasn't happened yet in our physical world, because the physical is the last step for creation. But where it's in the creation mode, and the way that we get it to happen in the physical world is we got to feel internally like it's already happened. So what are those feelings that you would feel if your wish was fulfilled, if your dream was complete, et cetera? And then are you feeling those on a regular basis, even though it hasn't happened yet? If so, you're a clear channel for it to happen. And I find in my own life, the more I just focus on how I feel and feeling good in all circumstances, because when we give our power away to outer circumstances to determine how we feel, we're making ourselves a victim of those circumstances. So when we decide that how I feel is the most important, and I determine how I feel at all times because I can control my thoughts, we're on the right track and we know it's on its way. If you think about your goal and you feel some distance from it, you feel separation, you feel anxiety, you feel unworthiness, any of those lower level emotions, it's not that it's not going to happen for you, but it's that those lower emotions, because they're not a match for the goal, it's almost like you're holding it at bay. So in those moments, and I have those moments too, this is probably going to get way too personal on a podcast, but I was coaching a client on a group call just a bit ago, and she was feeling some nerves and anxiety about a goal that she had felt really lit up about a while back. And I just asked her, I was like, what part of your cycle are you in right now? And she knew immediately what I was talking about. She was like, yeah, I'm on my period. And for us women, and even if you're not, even if you are not having an active cycle, our hormones still cycle every 28 to 30 days. We've got a period of time of a couple days to upwards of a week where, I don't know about you, but for me, I don't like to goal set during that time. I may have something that I feel really lit up about in another part of the month, that during that part of the month, I'm like, what was I thinking? This is crazy, blah, blah. My life is falling apart. It's not that dramatic. I'm being dramatic for effect, but I now know because I track it. I know on these certain days in the month, I'm not goal setting. I'm not analyzing anything. My brain will try to analyze it, but it's like, no, I know not to really listen to my thoughts during those days, unless it's about something that is coming up to be released or yeah. Anyway, this is a whole separate podcast episode. And the key is to know yourself. The key is to know yourself. But aside from that, that time and that period, like if you're, if you're in a place where normally you might be energetically high, but you think about the goal when you feel distance, separation, lack, etc., that's usually a time to step back. And this is where Abraham Hicks talks about getting more general with it. So if we want to speed up the creation of our goal, from a place of feeling good about it, we get more specific. So from a place of feeling good, we get more details added in. Who are those perfect clients enrolling into this program? What does the house look like? What are the details? Let me get myself in there. Let me feel myself, in the kitchen, touching the countertops, like cooking a meal for my family, all of that. We get more specific from that place of feeling good and whole. From a place of not feeling good and not feeling whole, we want to back off a bit and get more general and just focus first on feeling good again. And then from that place, then we get more specific as well. But, I know I'm talking a lot about Neville Goddard in the episode today, but I think he is one of the best resources that I've ever encountered, used, et cetera, when it comes to mindset and the subconscious mind and how we manifest things in our lives. And he talks about, the speed with which things happen. So you set a goal, the goal's here, you're here, right? It hasn't happened yet. The speed at which that will happen in your physical world depends on how much you feel like you're a match for it. It depends on how natural it feels for you. So when we do the inner work, and this is a lot of the work I do with my clients, is to condition the mindset to show that it's already happened, it's already done. When we do that inner work and it feels like it's already done, and it's almost like you come out of your meditation or your visualization and you're like, oh, I'm kind of like surprised that I'm here back in my old space because this actually feels like old news to me now. That's how you know you're on the right track, is that it feels natural for you to have the new reality. And so people say, well, how fast will it happen? Well, how natural does it feel to you? And does it feel very natural, very easy, very like, of course, this is my reality? If so, it'll probably happen relatively fast. If it feels unnatural, if you're bumping up against a lot of limiting beliefs, if there's a lot of, roller coaster going there, it'll probably take a little longer. But not to make yourself wrong for it. Because I know for myself, when I was in like that first quantum leap phase of going from $10,000 to $100,000 months, it was a roller coaster for a part of that, where I was really bumping up against a lot of deep-seated, long-lasting limiting beliefs. And a lot of times I find that's where my clients come to me, is it's like they know there's something more for their lives. They know, like they see it, they know it, but they've been almost in this box for so long that there's just some guck we got to work through together. So at that beginning phase, it can be a little more intense of the working through it. But you've probably heard this before, but it's true. A belief is just a thought you think again and again. So when we're diligent about the mindset piece and disciplined about that and conditioning the new belief system around the reality we want, it's literally just a matter of time. And your brain will throw up all sorts of objections to you. Your body will manifest illness. Your brain will give you excuses. It'll tell you all the things why it can't happen. The key is to know that everything you want is on the other side of that, and to sit long enough for your body and your brain to settle down, and for you to remind them who's in control. So anyway, with that, but that's how you know, is do I feel good about it, which means I'm in alignment, and I'm also acting in alignment with it, which we'll talk about as we close out the episode. Or do I feel not good about it? And okay, I know I'm probably slowing it down a little bit. Doesn't mean it's not going to come. I'm just slowing it down a little bit. And then the final piece with this is having trust and faith. And I think this really comes down to study. You have to study and understand. If you haven't studied universal laws, if you haven't studied spiritual laws, if you haven't studied quantum physics, it's, you're not going to know this stuff. So for me, I didn't know this stuff for so long. And I really came at everything from a very analytical, matter on matter type of approach that felt, well, it could create a level of success. I was still left with stress, anxiety, overwhelm, self-doubt, physical illness. But when you start to really study this stuff, and there's so many great resources. I mean, I hope my podcast is a great resource for you. I love Bob Proctor. I love Abraham Hicks. I love Wayne Dyer. I love Neville Goddard, Joe Dispenza. When you start to really study how these things work and you develop those new neural connections and neural pathways for a different way to create, you can have the trust and the faith that everything is happening and working out for you. But, it's funny, I was talking with my husband about something last night that we're creating right now. And it's a vision and a goal for both of us. It hasn't happened yet in our physical world, but, he was like, I just wish I could get a sign that it was on its way. And I love that he said that, because that was really my thinking for a long time too, but I was always afraid the sign wouldn't come. And what I've been learning about more recently, and I can't remember where I read this, it may have been Neville, but that signs don't precede, they follow. Signs don't precede, they follow. So if you're looking to get a sign that this is happening, or it's meant to be, or you're meant to do this, that's actually not the most powerful way to do it. Signs will follow after you make a decision. And a decision literally means the Latin decidere is to cut, which means you've cut off all other options. This is happening. I have decided. From that place where our brain kind of gets the message, oh no, this is really happening. Like, she's serious, he's serious. From that place where we have decided that we're claiming that goal as ours and it is our reality, and we're starting to show up in alignment as that person who has the reality that we desire, and we're taking the aligned action, you can look for signs. And for me, just a fun little one, everyone's are different, right? I see a lot of numbers. So 28 is my number. I was born on the 28th. My son was born on the 28th. I've had a lot of things happen on the 28th. And when I'm really in alignment, I see 28 on the hour, every hour, almost all day long. I'll just feel inspired to look at the clock and it's a 28. I'll feel inspired to check something in my text. It's a 28. And it's just like a little laugh, like a game I have now with the universe where it's like, okay, thanks for the nod. Like, I'm on the right track. But you'll have your own version of that, right? Like, my husband sees hawks. I never see hawks. He always sees them though when we're out, and that's fun. So you can look for signs if you feel like you need them, but remember, they don't precede, they follow. So if you're giving your power away to say, I'll do this when there's a sign, I would say you're giving your power away. And the only sign you need is that you had the desire for that goal to happen. And that's all you need, is you just need to want it. You just need the desire for it. So from that place, just in closing out, you must, and this is critical, you must act from the standpoint of it already being done. You must act from the standpoint of it already being done. And so from the place of my goal is already done, even though it hasn't happened yet in my physical world, it's a regular self-assessment process. What else could I do? Not an efforting, not a hustling energy, but what else could I do? If I could do one thing in this moment to move this forward, what would that be? And then you just ask and you listen. And sometimes an answer will pop in right away. Sometimes it'll take a while. It often won't make a whole lot of sense logically, and it will often be uncomfortable. I asked that just the other day about my goal that I'm working on right now. And the answer came in to terminate a particular client relationship. And this is a client who I love dearly. And it's a really wonderful client, but isn't able to go to the level that I'm at right now in terms of my programs and packages. And so I actually need to release this client relationship. And so it's like, you're growing your business, you're, looking to generate more revenue. logically, does it make sense to release a client? Maybe not, but I do know about the law of sacrifice, and we're always sacrificing something for something else. And if you want to really shift into some higher level goals, you got to look at what is everything I'm holding on to that's of a lower nature. And I'm not saying this client is of a lower nature at all. It's a beautiful human being. But the way in which we were working together wasn't in aligned with how I want to work together anymore. And what do I need to release so that I can step into something of a higher nature, if that makes sense? So we're always sacrificing something. And so when you get those downloads, those nudges, if they don't make sense, your job is still to follow them, and it's to follow them and move on them quickly. You may feel guided to make a phone call. You may feel guided to do a post. You may feel guided to go for a walk. Sometimes that's what shows up. The key is not to judge it. The key is to follow it. But truly acting from the standpoint of it already being done. So what else could I do? I was working with a client today who's launching a new program, and she has a desire to have 10 people in this program by the end of June. And it was like, okay, well, what could you do for a woman who has 10 people in this program by the end of June? What would she have in place? She would have client folders. She would have client agreements. She would have a program. She would be, doing it. And this woman's already doing a ton of outreach. So usually I lead with the outreach. This woman's already doing that. And so it's like, okay, you're already doing that piece. What else can you do? Because sometimes we can kind of hide behind, oh, I've got to prepare. I've got to make this program. I got to do this. And I don't even know that people are going to buy it yet. So this is not that energy. It's the opposite. She's already doing the outreach and she's connecting. And from there, what else would the person who has 10 clients in this program, what would she be doing right now? She would have everything ready to go, right? She'd have time on her calendar to work with her clients. How would she be dressing? How would she be speaking? How would she be talking about what she does on social media? And it's from that place, acting from the standpoint of it already being done, that we create and we work what most people would look at and say are miracles, when in reality, we know it's just how we create from a higher level. And so that's what you do. And I really hope that this serves you. It's when you're going for the leap, when you are skipping levels, there's going to be a time period where you set the goal and it hasn't happened yet. And the only thing that's going to prevent it from happening for you is if you doubt, fear, worry, question, go into anxiety mode about it, because that's literally ripping up the seed and it can't grow like that. But as long as we work on reducing or eliminating those behaviors and those energies around it, it has to happen. It has to happen. We just don't have to control and micromanage the whole process. We do our part. And that's what we do. We do our part and nothing more. So I'd love to hear your comments on this and your feedback. I share from my heart what I think is probably relevant for you right now, but I want to know, did this speak to you? What's speaking to you from this specifically? I'm always so honored when you take a screenshot and share on social and tag me. Again, I'm at Elyse Archer on all social. And also when you send me a DM and let me know what's speaking to you. So I'd love to hear from you. The biggest thing is just to remember to keep the faith. It's literally just a matter of time, and you get to be excited about it coming in and excited about it happening. So thank you so much for being a member of my community. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'll see you next week on our next episode of She Sells Radio. Bye for now.